What's happening? Welcome in Monday Live. I'm Jason Priester, allclemsontigers.com. We do it every Monday night right here, 7 p.m. This week's no different. I know we've got soccer going on. I'm not a big soccer guy. Maybe y'all can fill me in on what's going on as we go through this thing. Clemson playing for a national title tonight against Notre Dame. Um, yeah, soccer's not my thing, man. So we'll start off with basketball. We haven't talked a lot about basketball on here yet, man. And Brad Brownell's got this thing clicking, man. This was a brutal 7-day stretch Clemson just went through. Played up at Pitt on a Sunday, come back home for an emotionally charged rivalry game against South Carolina on Wednesday night. Right back on the road, right back up to Canada for a Saturday afternoon game against TCU and win all three of them, man. I mean, that's just utterly impressive. Really kind of expected Clemson to come out flat against TCU. Would not have shocked me at all to see them drop that game, considering all the travel and everything that you don't see on the court, all the stuff that goes on away from the court. Again, just a brutal kind of 7-day stretch there, man. And they have charged up the polls. They've charged up the net. They were up to number one in the RPI last I looked. I haven't looked in today, but just an impressive 9-0 start for that team. And I've said it on here before. I thought Joe Girard was kind of the missing piece that Clemson was kind of lacking last year. And man, can't say enough about Ian Shefflin. He's kind of the glue that holds that whole thing together. Just does all the dirty work, man. Just always attacking the glass, always. He even kind of had a slow first half Saturday against TCU. Comes back strong second half, man. He's just a rebound machine. Um, but again, I think Girard was kind of the missing piece, man. And when he gets hot, Chase Hunter, when he's a streaky kind of shooter. I kind of look at Girard, man. He's a stone cold assassin, man. He just, man, when he gets hot, he gets going. He is hard to slow down. South Carolina game, I didn't get to watch the TCU game. The wife had me at a Christmas party, had a birthday party before that, and didn't get to see any of it. Watched South Carolina game live and thought Clemson kind of struggled with their length and their physicality some in the opening minutes or the opening half, let's say. Didn't play very well. Probably the least impressive half I've seen them play this year. I hadn't seen every game, but I probably should see most from here on out, but I haven't seen every one of them to date. Um, didn't think it was one of their better halves. Let's put it that way. Man, they came back in the second half, really kind of took control of that thing, man, kind of imposed their will. And I thought they kind of broke the Gamecocks late in that game. And the Gamecocks just had no answer. That game was right there for the taking. South Carolina could have won that game. They just couldn't finish it. Again, I think Clemson kind of broke their will. Impressive start for basketball. Another big test coming up. Next up's Memphis on the road. That's always a solid program. Clemson's already got 4 quad one wins. They are 4-0 against quad one teams. I think as of Saturday, I don't know if this has changed since, but as of Saturday, the rest of the ACC combined had 4 quad one wins. They also got 4 quad 4 wins too. So I think that's maybe what has hurt them a little bit in the net. Everybody knows I think the net's trash anyways. So that is what it is. Yeah, we Jason don't do soccer, man. I would rather watch grass grow or paint dry or whatever. I've tried. I have tried and tried to watch soccer, man. I lived at the beach one summer, and the guys that I was rooming with, they were big soccer fans, and it was the summer of the World Cup, man, and we watched all the soccer games, particularly the USA games, and it's just not my thing, man. I cannot. I'm a football, baseball, basketball man. I enjoy tennis. Used to watch a lot of tennis, but soccer ain't it. Soccer ain't it. Sarian's got us updated here. 1-0 at half. Clemson, we getting started with bowl prep here. Kentucky Gator Bowl. Get to hear from Matt Luke tomorrow. Dabo Sweeney also speaks tomorrow. We'll hear from Chris Rump on Thursday. They're gonna let us watch a little bit of practice tomorrow and Thursday. Me and Zach will both be up there. A lot of eyes on the portal and how Clemson's going to recruit the portal or the results they're going to get from recruiting the portal. Adam Herron today kind of surprised some people with his quick announcement to Penn State, fresh off that visit to Happy Valley up there. Clemson was supposed to get a visit this coming weekend. Uh, he, it just goes to show you how quickly things can evolve when it comes to portal recruiting. Um, you just never know. And I think based on what I've heard, Clemson positioned themselves for this late visit purposely due to the coaching turnover. They wanted to make sure, everything was ironed out and everybody was on board. Um, and Matt Luke would be in place when he came. And this time, maybe, trying to get that last visit before signing day, maybe did not it did not work out for him this time. So it is what it is. And Herron's a guy I thought Clemson had a good shot with. Still think they got a good shot with the other kid from Middle Tennessee State, Rutledge. Was supposed to be here this weekend. Probably all of you seen he had a vehicle accident on Saturday, preventing him from making the trip. He put a bunch of photos of his car on Instagram. It flipped over a couple. I don't know how many times, like a few times. Um, and anyways, I don't have a date on when that thing's going to be rescheduled. Wouldn't shock me if it got made up this week. He's another guy I think Clemson's in good shape with. They got the Rick Stockstill connection there. Still think Clemson's going to take 2 offensive linemen, interior guy, tackle, minimum. Wouldn't shock me if they took a third, but I do definitely think they want to take 2 and at least one defensive end. Um, haven't heard much about the defensive ends. I get it. um, um, and I'll say the same thing. I think I said it last week. Clemson likes to do a bunch of they like to do their portal recruiting kind of under the radar. Just because you don't hear about something doesn't mean it's not happening. I'll use the Heron kid as an example. When he got his offer from Clemson last Monday, he blew up. All kind of schools followed in suit, jumped in on him quickly that same day. Some of them, almost immediately. He announced a bunch of offers that day after he announced the Clemson offer. And one of them was Penn State, and that's where he ultimately ended up going. He was committed there before I even started doing digging on trying to get some returns on that visit. That thing popped off quick. Clemson did get a commitment today. Marquise Henderson, little running back out of Belton Honea. He's a 3-star in the composite, which I think severely underrates him. I like Rivals rating of him more better. I think he's the second best player in the state, hands down, behind Amari Adams. I think the composite has him much lower than that. But this kid's a player, man. He's a little undersized, probably not big enough to be an every down back. Plays running back at Belton Honea. He's run on every defense he played this year, if I'm not mistaken. Over 2,300 yards. He set a school record with 40 total touchdowns. He's dynamic, man. He's electric with the ball in his hands. Clemson's taking him as an athlete because they've already got their running back for 2025 in Gideon Davis. Kind of one of those guys like Tink Kelly. Get him on campus, see where he fits best. Wouldn't shock me to see him playing in the slot because again, he's dynamic with the ball in his hand. Um, I think defensive back's also an option, but he's a playmaker and a guy with that kind of skill set. I think you got to find a way to get him the ball. Um, I don't know if his skills translate more as a defensive back at the NFL level more so than a slot receiver. Because again, he's an undersized guy. I think he's 5'8", something like that, or 5'9". He's less than 180 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. Undersized, but he is quick as a hiccup, man. He can move. He is a and again, he's just electric with the ball in his hands. The offer he was waiting on, Clemson's the one he was waiting on. Um, went to like I think I touched base with him yesterday, and I couldn't remember how many games he had went to at Clemson this year because I knew it was several. I knew it was more than two. I don't even think he remember. He said he thinks it was three. So he's been to at least 3 games this season, man. It seemed like he was there almost every home game. Um, and kind of quietly took a visit there yesterday. Got the offer, committed today. Um, Commitment number 7 in the 2025 class. Again, you already got your running back in Gideon Davis, and you got your quarterback in Blake Hebert. Got a very, very under the radar wide receiver in Juju Preston, who I think's only been rated by one of the services so far. Another guy who can fly. Um, you got your tight end in Logan Brook, and you got your defensive tackle in Amari Adams. And you got an offensive lineman in Easton Ware. So excellent start to the 2025 class. Excellent start. All right, let's see. I think we got something here on the text line. With all the crying about the portal, we finally offer guys and can't sign them. Why do you think it is they don't want to come to Clemson? Portal recruiting is going to be a little bit different than high school recruiting, man. Again, sometimes or a lot of times those things are going to develop quickly. When you're going head to head against Penn State, and we're talking about a Penn State program that's got a bunch of offensive linemen already in the fold up there, man, and they're kind of just stockpiling, it seems. But a lot of times when we're talking about portal, it comes to NIL. It ain't got nothing to do with the culture at your program or what you stand for. It's about who's writing you the fattest check. And I'm not saying that's what this recruitment came down to because I don't know. From my understanding, when Heron first jumped into the portal, he was not a guy that was looking for the biggest payday. He was looking for the best fit. Maybe he thinks he found that at Penn State. Um, Again, I think I said it last week. I don't think he was a plug and play type guy. I don't think he's a guy that was coming in and starting, next year for you, maybe a year from now. And I still think Clemson's gonna do whatever they can to take a tackle and an interior guy, possibly somebody that can play center. But you're gonna strike out on some guys. You can't make them come to you, especially when you're talking about NIL and maybe you can't offer quite as much as what some of these other bigger schools can offer. Um, so it's just going to be a case by case basis on why this guy might not want to come or this guy might want to come. It's just Clemson's Clemson's NIL is kind of going through a transition, so I'm not sure how fluid it is right now. I'm not sure how the collectives and the money they had translate over to the 110 society. I don't have the specifics or know the details on that. Maybe they're not quite as fluid this year as they were a year ago. It might take a year to build that thing back up. I'm just not sure about all those details. Not saying Clemson doesn't have anything to offer them, because if you don't have anything to offer, you don't even bother recruiting the portal. Um, so you're gonna miss on more than you hit on in the portal. To be quite honest, probably it's just gonna be the nature of the beast. Early signing day is December the 20th. Any chances RJ Mickens returns hasn't announced going to the draft yet or portal? I think RJ Mickens comes back. I don't know that for certain. I think he comes back. I think if he leaves, it'll probably be it for the draft. But I lean towards right now. I lean towards thinking he's coming back. getting a kick out of the forum regulars who thinks all Dabo has to do is just make offers to the kids in the portal and they'll come to Clemson. That's a seller's market. Absolutely. There's just so much tampering going on right now, and it's all about the almighty buck. Um, I know a running back in the portal right now who is asking for $75,000 a month. I mean, a running back. We talking about that's starting quarterback money almost. So these. I had somebody who's pretty plugged in with a collective the other day tell me that kids are getting terrible advice and they are asking for insane figures right now. So take that for what it's worth. My favorite emoji, man. Threw a pair out this morning. There's a pair been floating around out there for about a week now. About a week now. What is the latest on Shipley? Is he leaving or coming back? From my understanding, he is planning to play in the bowl game. He's been practicing and might not get a decision from him until after the bowl game. I'm starting to think the chances of him coming back are much better than I originally thought. Um, maybe you get another year of him. We'll see. I'm not sure it's all decided yet. But if you asked me a week ago, I think I probably said on here that I thought he was gone. Um, Toward the end of the season, he kind of sounded like a guy that was gone. Um, I don't, you know, I don't know if they've. This is about the time draft grades come in, so he might be already got his draft grade by now, and maybe that's helping make up his mind. But from my understanding, he is practicing and planning to play in the bowl game. Luke already has one miss with Herring going to Penn State and getting close to talk of him being a bust. Wait, if they miss on Rutledge, man, that talk will amp up and it'll go from sarcasm to serious in a hurry. Was Dabo's tampering comment in the Gator Bowl presser related to any recent transfers? You can bet your bottom dollar it was related to somebody on his roster right now or somebody that was on his roster 2 weeks ago. 100%, absolutely. Um, I've heard whispers of tampering going on during the season, before the season even ended, um, during the first half of the season. And it is just rampant. There's rules against tampering, but nobody's enforcing them. Nobody's doing anything about it. So it's going to run rampant right now, and that's exactly what we're seeing. So yeah, answer to your questions, yes, absolutely, 100%. Specific guys, I can't tell you that for certain. Um, it's hard to know. I do think there are guys on the roster who have not announced an intention to transfer or to enter the portal that have been tampered with. I think there are guys that left via the portal that were tampered with. Um, Again, some going back to end the season. I don't know. I can't sit here and give you specific names because all I could do was speculate. All right, before we go any further, I want to take a moment, remind everybody, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, click on that little bell. Tells you every time we go live. Click them all, man. We would very much appreciate it. Any thoughts on Elijah Griffin pairing him with Maury Adams would be a great defensive line class. Yeah, we'll see if Clemson can get him up here for junior days. If you can get him up here in January for your junior day, you got a very realistic shot. You're in it. Let's put it that way. Um, we're only about a month out from that thing. Um, so I think it's going to be based on everything I gathered that last weekend in January. So you can get him to that. You're in it for sure. But yeah, that would be if you could pair him with the Amari Adams, that'd be a heck of a class. Because I think Amari Adams has got an extremely high ceiling. I'm not sure he's a plug and play guy. He might need a year of development before he's ready to roll. But man, he's got so much talent, man. Just raw talent. It just oozes out of him. He's long, he's athletic, he's extremely fast. I've watched him play live a bunch of times. Can't say I've watched Elijah Griffin play. Um, I've watched his film and he's got all the same stuff. Probably a little more polished than Adams is at this point. Yeah, that would be a heck of a class, man. A heck of a class of defensive tackles if you can bring those two guys in. Because Griffin's, he's he's one of the top players in the country. You know, some people would probably say he is the top player in the country. You have any thoughts on Addison Nichols? Didn't get much time at Tennessee. Maybe looking coach him up. See, I have heard that Nichols is supposed to visit sometime into the week. I don't know the specific date. I tried to reach out to him earlier and I never heard back. But I don't, Nichols is an intriguing guy. See, Clemson's doing this thing a little bit differently than I thought they would. If you go back a few weeks, people were asking me about all the misses on the offensive line. Would that mean they have to go to the portal this year? And I didn't think it would. Obviously, they think differently. Because I figured, maybe the misses would lead to a gap next year or the year after, and Clemson would look for maybe some guys with 1, maybe 2 years of eligibility left, mostly graduate transfers. But that's not what Clemson's doing here, man. They're looking at guys with 2 years of eligibility, 3 years of eligibility. They're looking at guys in here that they can bring in here in place of guys they missed on in this class. So they're doing it a little differently than I thought they would. Um, but Nichols is an intriguing guy. I think he played a lot as a freshman, maybe not quite as much this year. I can't remember. I might have that backwards in my head. Um, but yeah, there's a lot to like about him, man. All the big boys were in on him when he was a recruit in high school. Clemson recruited him, so they're familiar with him. That relationship's already there, although there is a different offensive line coach. I think anybody with talent, though, Matt Luke's capable of coaching up 100%. For Clemson, when it comes to these portal guys, it's going to be about getting them on campus and trying to do trying to do your work under the radar best you can. A lot of these guys like to publicize all their offers. Um, like there was one offensive lineman late last week tweeted out all these schools he's heard from, and Clemson's on the list. And he's just a guy I can't see Clemson heavily pursuing out of the portal. Let's put it that way. I'm not saying they've not reached out or had any type of communication. If they did, I don't expect it got very far. Um, I just think if Clemson's going to have success in the portal, it's going to have to be under the radar and with some guys who are not looking to pit multiple schools against each other, trying to drive up his price. Um, you know, Same thing you hear with the high school recruiting, looking for the guys that fit and who will kind of come in here and wants to work, wants to get better, wants to develop. That's still things they're selling. And again, it's surprising me a little bit they're taking this route when it comes to the portal and the offensive lineman. I figured they maybe wait a year, and I thought they'd go after at least one, this go around. But I didn't know they were going to go after two or maybe even 3, and all of them, have at least 2 years of eligibility left. Guys they can bring in and finish up their development. Guys who are still developing. I figured it'd be guys who were already developed, already very experienced, and that's not the way we've seen it play out. Which positions do you think we will land portal recruits? Clemson wants to address the offensive line and defensive end. I can tell you that. Think if there was tampering with Makuba, he'd already be there, or he don't want it to look like there was tampering. And I'm not saying there was. I'm just saying there's two ways to look at that thing. Two ways to look at it. 2025 class is off to a great start. Yeah, it is. You gotta like the way it's setting up so far. You don't, the only thing you gotta hope you don't have the struggles along the offensive line that you had in this class. And fortunate they were already able to get one guy on board early in Easton Ware. Um, I think there's a lot of talent when you scan this list, man, and some of us underrated. Again, I think Marquise Henderson's underrated. Um, I think Juju Preston's underrated. It's just it's just a matter of your perspective. But it looks like they're trying to add speed at the skill spots. Juju Preston being a wide receiver that's already on board. You look at Jordan Young, a guy they're targeting, a wide receiver in 2025, smaller, twitchier guy with that can move. And you look at the guys they brought in or bringing in 2024 with um, Bryant Westcoat, TJ Moore, even at running back with Ajama May, tight end with Betancourt. All those guys can fly. They bring a lot of speed to the table, and I think Clemson's lack speed. And I'm not a big believer in top end speed, something that's a necessity on the offensive side of the ball. But I think you need explosiveness. I think you need burst, and I think Clemson's even lack that, man. And these guys give you a lot of that. Other than Sanders, are we in on any other 5-star players? I think Elijah Griffin's a 5-star player, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm not a big stars guy, as you can tell. I think that system's seriously flawed. There's way too much politics involved, and who goes to camp, where. I just don't pay that much attention to stars. I like to cut on the film and watch it myself. I'm trying to think off the top of my head though. There are any other 5-stars in the next class that Clemson is looking at, and I can't think of any right off the top of my head. I'm sure there are. Um, let's see here. Sanders. Okay, maybe that is the only two. Yep, Sanders and Griffin are really the only two with offers right now. But there's a bunch of guys in the top 100 that have offers. Oh, I'll take that back. Cornerback Naeem Offord also has an offer. He's a 5-star, not a guy I even follow. So I mean, I wasn't really not really expecting them to be in on him realistically. But to me, I kind of look at it if you can get your fair share of guys in the top 100 and top 150, top 200, top 250, whatever. You're doing pretty good. You get a few in the top 100 or whatever. That gives you it's an idea of what kind of talent level you're dealing with. But again, I like to cut on the film and watch it. Sometimes it's when you're dealing with guys who playing against weak competition, it's a little bit harder to gauge and a little bit harder to tell. But you get an idea. Um, like Gideon Davidson, I don't think he plays against the strongest competition up there in Virginia. But he's at a Christian school who plays against public schools. Um, and the kid just dominated. He dominated every team they played this year. Heck, I think half his games he didn't even play in the second half. Put up over 300 rushing yards in the state title game the other night. That kid can play, man. Sometimes you can just tell, even if they're playing against weaker competition. But those are the 3 5 stars Clemson have offered in 2025. Offered, Sanders, Griffin. Offensive lineman, defensive lineman, and a cornerback. Any new receivers being targeted, portal or 2025? Yeah, I've not heard of people by Clemson looking to add at wide receiver through the portal. Um, I really don't think Spector's coming back unless something changed since the last time I've asked about it. And you got Bo going out, so that's 2 going out, 2 coming in. Now, somebody else could leave between now and January the 2nd. I think it is when the portal closes, and you know you never know. Could be more than one leaves, and would change that complexion drastically. But as we sit here today, I don't think Clemson's going to look to add at receiver. I know that ain't what a lot of people want to hear, but I think that's the plan right now. I think they're fine with what they've got, and if you can keep them all healthy, maybe they will be. As far as new receivers being targeted in 2025, excuse me, still only just a handful with offers. Golly, it's not many at all. And I'm not sure they're taking more than 2 in 2025. We'll have to see how many come off a scholarship after the 2024 season. But Juju Preston's already on board, and we're talking about a guy who's only one of the services has rated him so far. And he's a guy, if you watch the film, is extremely impressive, but yet he's not been rated yet by I think none of the services except outside of one have rated him yet. That's just the way the ball rolls with recruiting. Though I remember it took Jarvis Green forever to get rated. Yeah, I just touched on this. Any reason to think Spector will decide to stay for another year thanks to COVID? Yeah, he's got another year he could use if he chooses to use it. You know, I haven't really asked about him lately, but I was led to believe this was probably going to be his last year. This was during the season, and he stayed hurt the whole second half of the season. So I guess it's possible it changed. Um, I don't know. I still lean towards thinking he's probably gone. Um, let's see. Are both of the new coaches working with the players for the Gator Bowl? Yes, sir. They are both already in Clemson. They are both already on working, on the recruiting trail, and they are going to be at the bowl game. Now, how heavily involved they're going to be, actually coaching in the bowl game, I don't know. That's a lot to learn in 15 practices. So we'll see. But yeah, they're there. They're 100% in now already. Clemson is near the bottom of the ACC with losses to the portal. Packers at the top with 19. Easy to believe guys want to bail on Dorn. Yeah, I think I've made no bones about it. Dave Dorn's not one of my um favorite coaches in the ACC. He's a little frosty, man. He can be a little crusty. Um, yeah, I'll be honest with you, man. I thought Clemson was going to be hit a little bit harder than they have been, and they still could be. Again, there's still plenty of time left to hit the portal. There might be some guys want to play in the bowl game, then decide to transfer. I can see some doing that. So I don't think we're done yet. But yeah, so far, you lose Makuba is probably the biggest loss. But if you look at what Barnes did, he's not going to be your nickel next year, anyways. That's going to be Barnes. And Makuba had to move over to, I think it was strong safety after Barnes kind of really started to shine there. And I don't know. Again, I'm just starting to speculate here. Maybe he wasn't thrilled about that. Maybe he'd rather play in the nickel. I don't know. But I also know that Makuba came real close to leaving last year. So can't say that I was all that shocked at all that he left. But to me, he's probably the biggest loss. I kind of look at Bo Collins as an addition by subtraction. Um, I know I said before the season I thought Bo could be as good as he wanted to be. I don't see any difference in Bo Collins this year than I did when he was healthy last year. Um, so I think it's one of those situations where both program and player can benefit from a fresh start because I think Bo's hit his ceiling at Clemson. And Clemson's got to be better at receiver, particularly out on the boundary. Because I like Bo. He's a good kid. He's 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 as nice as he can be, but he ain't that guy, man. He is not that guy that Clemson needs to be the number one top dog out there on the boundary. They need somebody with some dog in them, somebody with some alpha in them, and I just don't think Bo Collins gives you that. Out of everyone who is leaving portal or NFL, which was the biggest surprise to you? David Ojebi would be the biggest surprise to me. Freshman defensive end. I would love to know the real reason, the true reason, behind his decision. We're talking about a guy that redshirted, man. Um, with Clemson bringing in one of the more well-respected defensive end coaches in the country, and Chris Rump, who's got all this NFL experience, man. He's been around. He's done it all. That one was a head scratcher for me. The rest of them, I can't say any of the rest of them has surprised me. But Ojebi, with Clemson's depth at defensive end, because there are opportunities there to get on the field next year with XT and Mascol both leaving. Um, there's opportunities. All you got to do is reach up there and grab it. And I thought he was a guy that could potentially get on the field next season. I think he's a high ceiling, low floor guy, but I do think he was going to have the opportunity to see the field a lot next season. It was just going to be whether or not he could take advantage of it. So he's the one that surprised me the most. Chances Venables up for his last year too. I expect Jake Venables back. Not Jake. Um, Tyler Venables. I expect Tyler Venables back. Yes. Bo doesn't have an inflated ego. He always seemed honest about his capability to me. Yeah, I like Bo, man. He's extremely nice. He's always seemed humble and all that good stuff. I just think Clemson needs to be better out on the boundary. I think he's kind of hit his ceiling at Clemson. I think it's one of those deals where Bo could use a fresh start, Clemson can use a fresh start. and you got those two guys coming in next year, that they're going to get on the field. So I mean, I think Bo was looking at a reduction in snaps no matter what. Um, and he's probably going to, he's going to end up there. He's going to Notre Dame, and he's probably going to end up with Riley Leonard as his quarterback. So maybe it's beneficial for both parties. I am not a fan of Bo and Randall, but how do you feel about Cole Turner? He's had one good game and people love him. I'm not seeing anything special. Yeah, I don't see Cole Turner as some elite level wide receiver. Yeah, I just don't see it. I think he is going to be better than what a lot of people thought he was going to be coming out of high school. He's one of those guys he's extremely quick. He's got elite level speed, man. He's versatile. He also excelled playing basketball. But I don't think he is going to be. Let's put it this way: if Cole Turner is wide receiver one, I, that gives me some pause. I think he's. I think he could be a great complimentary guy. I think Adam Randall's got a much higher ceiling than Cole Turner if he can get over whatever it is that's holding him back. Um, I don't know if you've heard me talk about Randall before because I've done it a lot. I've watched him play a lot in high school. That kid had some dog in him, Then and from by all accounts, he was killing it. His first spring, then he tears the ACL, comes back last year, and he's never looked the same since. He had to have an operation on the opposite knee after last season. Also broke a finger or something last season. I can't remember what it was, and had to sit out all this spring after the operation on his other knee. And I was told when he got to camp this year, he just had a different look in his eye. And you can see it on the field. He doesn't look like the same guy. He just looked like he wasn't playing with a lot of confidence there early in the season. And then he broke his hand this year. Um, so far, he hadn't been able to catch a break. But if that kid can get over the hump of whatever it is that's holding him back, because it kind of sounds mental, I think he has got a lot higher ceiling than a lot of fans think. Because I get it, fans are basing it off what they've seen his first 2 years. And a lot of times he looks like he's running in quicksand. But I'm telling you, I've seen that dude run, man. If he would just let loose or cut it loose, man, and just and play free, he's he could play so much faster than he has. All right, Zach needs a soccer update, y'all. I wouldn't even know how to ride a soccer gamer. Russell says it's 1-0. Is Clemson up or down? Are they down, up 1-0, or down 1-0? Who is enrolling early? Let me see if I got a list right here. I know Bryant Wesco is, and I know TJ Moore's not. Okay, Clemson's up one. Yeah, I know Bryant Wesco is, and I know TJ Moore's not. Jama May is. This is the list I got so far. David Ajamame, Bryant Wesco, Ronan O'Connell, Champ Thompson, Sammy Brown, Tavoy Fegan, Corey Gibson, Ricardo Jones, Noah Dixon. And that was a list I put together back in the summer, so I'm sure it's grown since then. I gotta update that. Is Hebert considered a better QB than Cade or about the same? Cade was the top high school quarterback in the country in his recruiting class. Hebert isn't. I watched Hebert work out at camp last summer, and he was impressive, man. He's got a strong arm, makes all the throws. He's accurate. I mean, he looks sharp. Doesn't play against the best competition up there where he's from, and he spent most of this season hurt. But he's Garrett Riley's guy. Garrett Riley kind of handpicked him after watching him work out at camp. Went up to his school and watched him throw. Then had him come down here and work out at camp, and Clemson offered him. It looked like Clemson was just kind of going after George McIntyre and somebody else. I forget who it was off the top of my head. And all of a sudden Blake Hebert just kind of comes out of nowhere, and that's the guy Riley wants. And the success that Riley's had with quarterbacks in the past, he kind of I tend to give him the benefit of the doubt. Um, Again, I've not watched a lot of Hebert. He was hurt most of his junior year, so there's not a lot of film to watch. I just saw him work out at camp, and that's just drills and stuff. They don't let us watch the one-on-ones. Although I heard he was damn impressive during the one-on-ones. But if he's the guy that Riley handpicked out of the 2025 class, I mean, I think that kind of speaks volumes. Any thoughts on the change of mindset to recruit the state of South Carolina? I don't know that the mindset's necessarily changed. Um, you always take your swing. I mean, Clemson took their swing with all three of those offensive linemen in the 2024 cycle, knowing they probably weren't getting two of them from the beginning. Um, it just kind of you just got to kind of take it on a class by class basis and see what's out there, see what's available. And I don't think anybody would have predicted Amari Adams ending up at Clemson because his daddy grew up a Gamecock fan. Amari grew up a Gamecock fan. Um, Daddy does want me to make sure to tell everybody that his fandom plays no part in Amari's recruitment or where he ends up going to school. He's all about getting Amari developed, and Clemson is where they think they can do that. They fully believe in Nick Eason being able to bring the best out of him. But I don't think anybody would have predicted a year ago that Clemson had as much of a shot with Adams because of his ties to South Carolina. But he's one of those exceptions where you get a Carolina fan or a kid that grew up rooting for Carolina and you win him over against them. It don't happen a bunch of times, but it happens from time to time. We saw it with Xavier Thomas. We've seen it a handful of times over the years. It just doesn't happen a ton. And then you got the Henderson kid right down the road from Clemson at Belton Honea who's been on the radar for a while, and there's a reason why he's been on the radar for a while because he's good. Um, I don't necessarily think the mindset's changed. I just think you take it on a year by year basis, and depending on you know what players are available, where they fit, talent level. Like take Lenore Sellers for example. I think that dude's gonna be a superstar, man. I would take him over Chris Vizina in a New York minute. Um, I think Clemson missed the boat on him. I think a ton of schools missed the boat on him. At the same time, to be fair, Lenore spent half of his junior season hurt, didn't play. He committed early in the process to Virginia. He was committed to them for a long time. Decommitted when Bronco Mendenhall left and Robert Anae left to go to Syracuse, and then he committed to Syracuse and stayed committed to Syracuse. So he, from outside appearances, his recruitment was shut down, and Clemson had this long-standing relationship with Vizina. I get it, familiar with him. Clemson never even really recruited Sellers. They reached out to him. There's a little bit of communication, but they never really seriously recruited him. And again, I'd take Sellers over Vizina right now, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Um, you look at Tyler Brown and Antonio Williams, two guys they waited late to get in on. Again, it's just you take it on a case by case basis, year by year basis, and see what's available, see the talent level, see what holes you need to fill. Um, I'm not 100%. I don't know if I'd say the mindset's necessarily changed. The results have changed. That's what I think. Clemson went after Josiah Thompson. They went after Cam Pringle, two of the higher rated players in the state in the last cycle. They just didn't get them. Um, that's the way it's going to be sometimes when you got a state divided the way this one is. So Clemson's up 2-0 in the soccer game. Well, I'll be dog. Will Wiggins be the only first round draft pick out of Clemson this year? I think Wiggins has got a excellent shot at going in the first round. And if I had to bet on it, I'd say he's probably going to be their only first round pick. Probably. Any chance we can flip DJ Lagway? Not even making the effort. Thoughts on ETN jumping in the portal? Don't really have any. Can't say I'm surprised one bit. And I'm going to leave it at that. If you had to guess, when can we expect another recruit? I think you get more than one within the next 10 days. The O lineman out of Daniel High looks legit. I went and watched a lot of his film over the weekend because I had not watched much of it, prior. He looks good. And let me start this by saying I am not a talent evaluator, especially when it comes to offensive linemen. I think I know what I'm looking for, but I can't say for sure that I do. You know, to me, if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck, it is a duck. But man, I kind of tend to agree. And I talked to somebody about him over the weekend and was told if he was 2 inches taller, he'd be on everybody's radar. Now, what hurt him was his measurables, not his talent level. And Clemson, if you go back over the years, man, there's a couple offensive linemen, Jordan McFadden being one, who didn't really fit the mold of what a typical tackle's supposed to look like. And Clemson kind of turned him into, a productive offensive lineman in McFadden's case, a tackle. We'll see if they can do it with Watson, Watson Young. But yeah, I know half the fan base is going to hate it because he goes to Daniel. They're not even going to turn on the film. They're not going to watch it. They're going to see he's a low 3-star and lose their freaking minds. But I think there's something to work with there, man. We'll see. I tend to lean towards thinking there is. Thoughts on Drew Woodaz playing next season? I would lean towards thinking he does. If I had to guess right now, I'd say he does not redshirt. I've been told he's more polished than Wade was coming out of high school. So you got that going for you. With Barrett coming back and Clemson taking 3 in the 2024 class, you're not nearly as thin at linebacker as you could have been if Barrett and Trotter had both left. So I mean that might hinder him a little bit getting on the field early. But I think he'll see the field. And I kind of lean against thinking he redshirts. We'll see. You know, Wade didn't wedge red shirt. Clemson was a little thinner at linebacker. They didn't quite have the depth that I think they're going to have next year. So maybe that hurts Drew a little bit more than it hurt Wade. So we'll see. But I've heard that there are people who think that Drew was more polished coming out of high school than Wade was, and we all saw what Wade did. He was pretty dang polished as a freshman. You don't think Trotter is a first round? Probably not. No, he's got. I think he's got a slim chance. But if I had to bet money on it, no. Any word yet on Levon Kirkland's official role? Sure, it'd be good to have him be one of the guys calling head coaches in South Carolina for recruiting. No, I don't. I don't know about that yet. Find that out tomorrow probably, but I tend to think it's going to be more of a kind of like player development role, um, administrative type thing. If I had to guess. Do you think Clemson not being in the Power Two could start affecting recruiting? Thoughts on Clemson going to the Big Ten? I'm gonna take these two in one shot. I don't know if y'all saw the news that came out over the weekend where the NCAA is looking to implement this a new rule where schools can kind of really start paying players directly. Um, and schools can choose to either opt into doing that or opt out of doing that. To me, that is the first step in the break that's coming, the break from the NCAA. I used to think we were maybe a decade away from that happening. I don't think that anymore. I think I'm thinking 5 years, and we're gonna be there. This thing is sped up so much faster than I ever envisioned. Um, when that happens, I think you're gonna see 40, 50, 60 teams break off from the NCAA and go do form their own thing, and it's going to be football only. They're not going to take basketball, baseball, none of the other sports with them. Going to be left behind. And when that happens, they're going to all be playing on this under the same umbrella. They might be divided up into two different leagues. Think NFL with the AFC and the NFC, but they're all playing under the NFL umbrella. That's where I see this thing going. So I don't think this is going to matter as much as we thought it did. You know, 6 months ago, a year ago. I don't think Clemson needs to worry about getting in the SEC in 3 or 4 years or the Big Ten in 3 or 4 years because I'm not sure those conferences still exist as we know them today. I'm telling you, I think we're heading for a break, and I think it's going to be, again, 40, 50, 60 um, of the teams that want to invest big in football that break off from the NCAA and go do their own thing. And if you look at Clemson and the way they've invested in football, I would 100% include them in those teams or schools that would choose to go that route. As far as Clemson in the Big Ten, I've not really heard anything new on that. I do think that just big announcement everybody was waiting for in October. I don't think that was not going to be this announcement of, hey, we're leaving the ACC on such and such a date and we're joining the so and so conference. I think it was going to be more so along the lines of Clemson coming out and saying they were going to challenge the grant of rights. And I still think that's going to happen. I just think the additions of SMU, Cal, and Stanford have kind of slowed it down a little bit. Um, Maybe we don't hear something until all the details of how the new revenue is going to be shared or finalized and made official. Um, again, I've always said that I've been told that once those new TV deals kick in for the SEC and the Big Ten, that there are people that thinks that the grant of rights will be challengeable, that the schools will have a leg to stand on when trying to challenge it because it doesn't measure up when it comes to how much or Clemson or the ACC's television contract doesn't hold up when you compare it to what the SEC and the Big Ten are going to be getting in these new deals. And there's some language in there that says there got to be, can't remember exactly what it was, but there's some language in there that says they've got to be competitive with their competitors. And they won't be. They'll be bringing in half of what those guys are. But I'm just not sure. I'm not sold on the fact that 5 years from now we're going to be sitting here talking about four power conferences or three power conferences. I think we're going to be talking about something entirely different. And I fully believe Clemson's going to be a part of that because they invest in football. They're one of the biggest spenders. They spent the second most in recruiting last year. They've got a wildly successful booster club, one of the best in the country. Um, Especially when you compare it to how small it is with the alumni base is, man. It kills it with its fundraising effort. So it's going to make for an interesting ride over the next few years to see how it plays out. That's just a theory I have. I've said that for a long time. I just think it's coming quicker than I originally thought. Um, maybe once we get there, you got the SEC on one side and the Big Ten schools on the other side, however they end up shaping out. But I do believe they're going to all be playing under the same umbrella and splitting up the same revenue pie. Man, I'm telling you what, hour just flies by on Monday nights. Don't forget, if you haven't hit that like button, please do so. Hit that subscribe button. Don't forget, me and Zach will be right back here Wednesday night, 7 o'clock for Paul Talk. That'll come after, we'll be out at practice tomorrow. We'll hear some from Dabo Sweeney, Matt Luke, some of the players. So we'll talk about what we saw at practice and what we heard from those guys and anything else that might come up between now and then. 3 minutes left. Clemson's up 2-0, man. Looks like they are fixing to claim another national title in soccer. All right, I'll take this one. My thoughts on FSU getting left out. I touched on this a little bit last week, I think. Did somewhere anyways. It kind of depends on the way you look at it. I'm kind of torn on this because to me it's supposed to be about getting the four best. And as bad as it sucks for Florida State, I don't think they are one of the four best without Jordan Travis. Our last impression of Florida State, and I get it, it was with a quarterback who wouldn't even be playing in the playoff, was bad. It looked terrible. They played the 55th ranked schedule in the country compared to probably an overinflated Bama schedule. I get it. SEC is going to always be propped up a little bit. But if we're talking about taking the four best teams, I get it. I don't think Florida State's one of the four best. I don't care if they're 13-0 or 20-0. They just haven't looked like one of the four best teams to me. I'm not sure Bama is either, though. I might would have taken Georgia over Bama, but it's not up to me. I think it sucks for Florida State. I think it sucks for the ACC. I think it sucks for Mike Norvell, even though I don't feel all that bad for him. But I do think it sucks for those players what happened. The playoff committees over all these years since they went to the 14 playoff, man, their job's been pretty relatively easy for the most part. 10 things have tended to work themselves out pretty much every year And here we are, final year, 14 playoff, and it finally didn't work itself out. You had so many teams vying for so few spots, and somebody deserving was getting left out. Um, it is what it is. I would have been interested to see what would have happened under the exact same scenario if Jordan Travis doesn't get hurt. Because I have a feeling Florida State was getting bumped anyways, and the committee used the injury as a reason to bump them. But I think they were getting bumped regardless. Because you got to have an SEC team in there. You take Bama out and put Florida State in, ESPN's looking at losing $150 million in television revenue. $150 million. And to me, I think that's what it all boils down to. Plain and simple. Who puts the asses in the seats and the eyeballs on the screens? And the SEC does that. Texas does that. Michigan does that at a higher rate than Florida State. I could have got on board with leaving Michigan out for the cheating scandal. Um, you know, but that's just me. If it was me personally, I probably would have had Michigan, Bama, Georgia, Florida State. And I know Texas beat Bama head to head. I know. It's early in the season. I thought Milroe played a lot better over the second half, and I know Auburn pushed them into. I get all that. If it was me, that might be the way I would have went. Because I got a hard time leaving Georgia out. 29-game winning streak, back to back national champs, and they lost one game in the SEC championship game, and they're not even going to get a shot at a three-peat. That feels wrong to me. That just feels wrong. So, I probably would have went Michigan, Bama, Georgia, Florida State. Is probably the way I would have went. But I can't say that I cannot say that I don't get the decision. Because if you're asking me flat out who the four best teams are, I don't think Florida State's one. But if I'm picking them, I'm kind of trying to balance between four best and four most deserving. And with that, I'm going to bid you guys adieu. I will see you next Monday. Don't forget, Wednesday night, 7 o'clock, me and Zach right back here for Paul Talk. We'll talk about everything we saw at practice tomorrow, what we heard from Dabo, Matt Luke, all the players we hear from tomorrow. I'll be right back here next Monday. Early preview into signing day, if you will. Signing day is that Wednesday. It'll be the signing day extravaganza. Let's call it that. And as always, if you've not hit that subscribe button, please do so, man. I think everybody that's tuned in tonight, man, we had another good crowd here. I was kind of worried that the soccer game was going to hurt us a little bit. I don't think it hurt us too bad at all. Go celebrate that national title, man. See y'all next Monday night.